Hi ladies, Coach Karen here, and I want to talk to you today about portions, okay? So when we're talking portions, I'm gonna take you into my kitchen and just show you kind of how I do it. Now, where we wanna get to with all this stuff is we wanna get to intuitive eating, which means we're using our eyesight for stuff, right? But first we got to know what $1 is before we can spend it. We got to know what a half cup looks like or 3.5 ounces looks like before we indulge, right? So I'm just going to take you to my kitchen. So here, let's go together, shall we? Walking out of my office. Now you're walking through my kitchen. I'm going to turn this around so you can see, okay? This is like real high-tech stuff here. Woo! Turned you upside down. Okay. Now you're in my living room. Now say hi to Finnegan. Say hi, Finnegan. Finnegan is one of 2 dogs. There's the cat. She just kind of lays around. This one, that's Eva, the cat. Hello, Eva. Daisy's sleeping on the other bed. Okay, so here you are in my messy kitchen. So I want to show you what I do. For example, here's my scale. This is called a Saltaire scale. You can get whatever scale. What I do with my scale, and I don't really need to do this much anymore. Here, let me turn this around. I don't really need to do this much anymore, but what I do is I'm pretty good at eyeballing now, and I just tested myself out again. Could I really get 3 to 4 ounces of meat in that bowl perfectly? I got 3.25 ounces or whatever. It gets pretty easy after a while where I don't have to think about portions. Now, for people that eat out a lot or for people that Tupperware it a lot, you know, Tupperware queens, and you take your food with you, I highly, highly recommend that you still measure it as best you can before you put it in there. Because if you're just scraping in there, you don't know how much you're eating. And research has shown those people that eat out of Tupperware and don't put it on a plate tend to overeat because there's no management visually of your food, right? And I really do find that visually is the best aid to hunger cues, especially when you're learning this at the first get-go, because you're trying to get your metabolism on track, you're trying to get your hunger cues level. And for those people that have done dieting, or if they've been inconsistently eating, which most of us have, that's why you guys are here with me coaching you, the cues are out of whack. And so we need to be consistent in our portions and our timing in order for our bodies to settle into a rhythm and get to know what satiety is, get to know when enough is enough, and yeah, I'm full, I don't need any more. So obviously they say the 20-minute rule, you know, you gotta eat slow because you can overeat because the feelings of fullness don't come in till later. There is certain truth to that. But honestly, guys, if you know portions, you're never going to mess up. You don't have to wait till, oh my gosh, I've eaten too much. I ate too fast. If you just follow portions and have that in your eyesight all the time, then you're not going to go wrong. And then you figure out what times of the day you're going to eat, and you stay consistent with that. I mean, not like, you don't have to like set a clock for 11 a.m. and then 2 p.m., but really you should be fairly consistent. And yes, this goes for weekends too. Why do we stray on the weekends? I don't know. I think, we kind of set it up as a reward system. But the problem is the majority of people that have weight issues overeat on weekends. And that is the 90%, researchers have found, 90% of the reason for weight gain is because they're not consistent on weekends. So if you can just be consistent on weekends and start to understand your portions, you're like 80% ahead of the game. Really. So never mind about the macros, never mind about the number crunching, never mind about the formulas. It really is about initiating some basic habits in everyday eating. That's always what it's been about. But people don't want to look at that stuff. They want the outside-in approach. They want to look out there, right? Instead, you just have to manage it right here, right now in your kitchen. So here's what I do. So let me turn this around. Here's my scale. So say, for example, we're talking protein. So here's my chicken. So 3 to 4 ounces is good enough for most women. That's 20 to 25 grams of protein. So rather than putting this on top of here and it gets all messy, this is just a little trick that I do. Before I even turn on the scale, I put that on, and then I push on, and so it's already taking this into account, the weight of the dish, and it's at 0. And then I can, so everything is set at 0 now, and then I can add my chicken in, and then looky here. Where am I going up to? I want to turn it to, I prefer grams, or actually I do ounces, that's what I've got. Oh, there we go, 3¼ ounces. Some people want to do grams, that's fine, you can do grams. I just like ounces, it just gives me a better visual. So there's my 3½ ounces of chicken. That is my serving size, perfect, right? You can do this with anything. So again, it's going to set back to 0. And then if you want to, you can do your quinoa, you can do your broccoli. I really don't do broccoli. I mean, I do it, but I just eat it. And then the other little rule of thumb is when you're, doing any kind of dry stuff like oats or quinoa, just look to the back of the package. They always talk dry, okay? So this one is 1/4 cup is 30 grams of carbs. So that's a fair amount. So quinoa is more packed because I can get a half a cup for less carbs with the oats. So I usually find a half a cup is too much, and so I actually use 1/3 of a cup. So I use these spoons, and they're in here all the time. So 1/3 of a cup works for me. That gives me 20 to 25 grams of carbs. I just leave it in there. So now when I cook, there it is, my perfect serving of quinoa or oats, and they're always sitting in the bags, and so it's easy breezy. Then we've got our beans. So if we look on our beans, now these are starchy carbs, and we'll talk about these. Starchy carbs are a bit different, but we need both. So this is half a cup is carbohydrates, 18 grams, almost 20 grams. I always round it off, 20 grams. So there's half a cup. I mean, it's not a lot, hey? Half a cup of beans is 20 grams. Now, if I was going to do broccoli, which is a fibrous carb, 7½ cups of broccoli is 20 grams. So what are you going to do? Well, it depends. Some people like eating just fibrous. I don't. I like eating both. So I mix it up. But if you're going to have the same value of carbs, that's all you get, man, in starchy carbs. Now, starchy carbs definitely have their value as well as fibrous. So they're very different. But you can eat a lot more fibrous for the same amount of carbs and calories, or less calories, than starchies. But that's where starchies have gotten a bad rap, because they're like, oh, they're just too packed in calories and you can't eat as much. Well, we're not supposed to eat as much. We're supposed to enjoy both. I don't know about you. I don't want to live without my rice or my potatoes or my yams. And I'm not going to sit there and just eat broccoli and spinach and cauliflower. Not only that, you have to eat a lot in order to make 80 to 150 grams of carbs a day. And that's kind of my starting point with women. I usually say the low is 80, the high is 150. Some women can eat 200, but imagine how much broccoli you'd have to eat to get 200. A lot. And you would have fiber overload, and you would have distended stomach, and your digestion would not work. Plus, we want some starchies because there's more sugar in starchies. Sugar creates a hormonal cascade that allows protein into the body. So it's never about fibrous or the less starchy carbs over the starchies, never. And this is where poor potatoes and rice have been demonized. I love my potatoes, I love my rice, but I eat both my veggies and my grain and my root vegetables. And if you're going to eat in season, then you have to eat your root vegetables. That's also what builds immune system and metabolic and digestive power. You can't just eat, and I don't eat raw. When we look at Chinese medicine, which we look at in the Warrior Woman program, eating raw all the time is too hard on digestion. It's hard on the thyroid because it draws, there's certain things in some veggies that have blocked the uptake of goitrogens, block the uptake of iodine, hence the name goiter in the thyroid. Thyroid gets bigger trying to get more iodine in, and raw veggies can be detrimental in that way. So again, another whole conversation, but the body loves steamed veggies as opposed to raw. Some people can do raw, do a little bit of raw is great, but when it comes to veggies, you got to break down that hard cellulose fiber and allow your body to have food put in that's room temperature, slightly already pre-digested with steam or heat. So I hope that makes sense. We will chat soon. Ciao.